They arrested me with batons drawn for swimming in my own lake. Yeah, you heard that right. Picture this. I'm floating out there, minding my own business, in water I legally own, when suddenly 3 squad cars come barreling down my dirt road, sirens wailing like it's the end of days. And leading the parade? The HOA president, bleached blonde, fake nails, a voice that could shatter glass, and enough attitude to clear out a biker bar. She points right at me, shrieking, "There! Arrest him!" The next thing I know, an officer's got his baton out, yelling, "Sir, exit the water now." I'm standing there dripping wet, thinking, you gotta be kidding me. I paid $180,000 for this lake at county auction. My deed's sitting right there on the dock. But Karen here? She thinks screaming louder makes her right. The taste of fear, metallic, sharp, mixes with pure, blinding rage as they cuff me on my own dock. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about swimming, not really. This was about power, money, and just plain old-fashioned corruption. Funny thing is, their 911 call triggered a federal investigation that ended up sending 3 people to prison and blowing up the biggest HOA scam my state's ever seen. Ever been arrested on your own property by neighbors hungry for control? Where are you watching from? If you've got a wild neighbor story, toss it in the comments. You're probably wondering how a peaceful lake turned into a federal crime scene. Buckle up, cause this ride gets wilder than a tornado in a trailer park. Name's Dalton Rivers. 6 months ago, I was just a 52-year-old retired Navy engineer, hoping to find a little peace after a divorce that left me broke, and honestly, broken. I'd spent 26 years fixing nuclear subs, then 10 more working odd jobs as a handyman in a sleepy town. Figured I'd earn the right to fish in some quiet water without anybody barking orders at me. My dad passed last spring, left me his life savings. Wasn't much, maybe $200,000 after the funeral, and Uncle Sam took his slice. But it was enough to chase a dream I'd had since the Navy, a place where the only authority was Mother Nature herself. That's when I found it, a hidden patch of paradise at a county auction. 47 acres, hugging a spring-fed lake, so clear you could count dimes on the bottom, 20 feet down. Pines older than my grandfather whispered secrets, and the mist at sunrise rolled across the water like something straight out of a storybook. The cabin was an old 1940s number, with plumbing that moaned like a cranky old sailor, but the lake was pure magic. First time I set foot on that shoreline, the air smelled like cedar and fresh earth, felt like coming home after a lifetime at sea. You ever hear loons calling at dawn, their voices bouncing off hills so far away you wonder if you imagined it? For the first time in years, I could actually hear myself think, instead of my ex's voice telling me what I'd messed up. The auction paperwork looked clean enough. Previous owner died, no family to claim it, so the county put it up for sale. Clean title, no liens, nothing complicated. When the auctioneer's hammer dropped at $180,000, I walked out with the deed, 47 acres, including mineral rights, and, most important, exclusive lake access. The 1923 survey map was clear as crystal, private lake, private shoreline, private dock rights. Everything north of Clearwater Creek. Mine, fair and square. What I didn't know, what nobody told me, was that someone had been illegally collecting fees on my water for 20 years. For 3 glorious weeks, life was perfect. Sunrise coffee on the dock, eagles fishing, bass circling the pilings. I wandered those woods dreaming up a new dock, maybe a workshop. Then I met the woman who would make my life hell and accidentally blow the lid off the biggest fraud in the state. Picture everything you can't stand about entitled suburban royalty, toss in a law degree, and crank it up to 11. Vivian Whitmore, 58, hair so bleached it could signal ships, designer clothes that looked allergic to dirt, and a white BMW that probably had its own therapist. She strolled across my dock in heels, every step clicking like a doomsday clock, scaring birds halfway to Canada. "Excuse me," she says, in that syrupy voice rich people use when they're about to ruin your day. "This is private HOA property." I look up, still holding a hammer, sawdust in my hair. "Ma'am, I think there's a mistake. I own this lake." She laughed, high and cold, like ice in a martini glass. "I don't think so. I'm Vivian Whitmore, president of the Lakeshore Estates Homeowners Association. This lake belongs to our community." So I grabbed my deed, still crisp from the county, and handed it over. "Take a look, 47 acres, all water rights included. Her face did this weird rainbow, from confusion to anger to some calculation that said, "This isn't over." She handed it back, stinking of perfume and resentment. "We'll see about that," she whispered, slamming her car door so hard it echoed off the water. 48 hours later, a process server dumped a manila envelope in my hand. Formal trespass notice from Bradshaw, Sterling, and Associates. I'm to cease all lake access, pay 15 grand in damages, and admit my deed's invalid. The letter smelled like money and arrogance. But see, the Navy teaches you when someone starts firing, don't duck, fire back, and fire bigger. My old chief's words. Rivers, when bureaucrats come for you, hit him with paperwork. I drove straight to the courthouse and met Ruby Hendricks, a 78-year-old retired county clerk with eyes sharp as razors. She led me down into the archives, dusty as a miner's boots, where we dug through records nobody'd looked at in decades. Jackpot. The original 1923 maps proved Lake Share Estates was built around my lake, not on it. But Ruby found more. The HOA's founding documents from 1987, signed by Vivian's father-in-law, specifically excluded my lake from the HOA's control. And tucked behind them, a handwritten note. Lake to remain private property in perpetuity. HOA has no claim. I about dropped to my knees. I hired Jake Morrison that afternoon. 34, hungry, fresh off beating a developer trying to steal a family farm. $200 an hour, compared to the HOA's $800 an hour sharks. Jake took one look and grinned. They don't have a leg to stand on. He filed a motion for dismissal and a public records request for every HOA board minute mentioning the lake for 20 years. Then the bomb dropped. Jake's accountant found that for 2 decades, the HOA had been charging residents lake access fees. $200 a household, 180 homes, that's $36,000 a year. Over 20 years, 700 grand. Then marina fees, waterfront charges, over $1.2 million. They'd been selling access to my property all along. Fury tasted like copper in my mouth. They'd been running a racket on their own neighbors. But Jake's accountant found worse. The marina wasn't just illegal, it was unpermitted. This was a federal issue now. So I'm prepping for legal battle, and in classic HOA style, Vivian calls an emergency board meeting and slaps a $3,000 special assessment on every house for legal defense. Imagine coming home to find your neighbors billing you $3 grand to help steal someone else's land. One anonymous ally started slipping me meeting minutes under my door, suburban deep throat style. But Vivian was just getting started. She hired a PI, washed up, rusty Camaro, lurking in my driveway, following me to church like a stalker with a badge complex. Then came the complaints, anonymous calls to building inspectors. Someone cut my dock lines twice, my boat drifting like a ghost. But see, I had an ace up my sleeve. Dr. Sarah Theo, environmental lawyer, sharp as a scalpel. "Dalton, where's your lake water go?" she asked, tracing survey lines. "Turns out my lake flows out to the Susquehanna River, a navigable waterway under federal law. Federal navigation servitude," she explained. "If these waters connect to commerce, the feds trump any HOA." That's when Vivian made her biggest mistake. 6 weeks later, I'm out for my morning swim when all hell breaks loose. Sirens, squad cars, shouts. Vivian stands on my shore, pointing like I'm a serial killer. That's the armed trespasser. He threatened to kill me. I'm out there in swim trunks, nothing else. Officer Martinez, good guy, it turns out, orders me out. His rookie partners shaking with adrenaline. "Exit the water or we'll come in after you." They cuff me, dripping wet, on my own dock, while Vivian grins like she just won the lottery. But here's the twist Vivian never saw coming. That arrest was the best thing that ever happened to me. Martinez actually read the deed, saw what was really going on, and color drains from his face. Charges dropped in 24 hours, but now there's an official record, false reports, harassment, and some bureaucrat flags the file for federal review. My little fight just became a federal case. Vivian doubled down, hired an expert to claim my lake was just a pond, paid him $500 an hour to lie in court. Then she got the county to threaten condemnation, $50,000 in safety upgrades, or lose my cabin. Oil appeared in the water. EPA tips started pouring in, my tires got slashed, fake for sale signs popped up. Half the town treated me like a pariah, the other half whispered support but kept their heads down. But then, Sarah found a 1962 Army Corps of Engineers study. My lake had been federally protected for over 60 years, waters of the United States, connected to tribal lands, ancestral Cherokee fishing grounds. Federal law, the HOA's Marina, built on sacred ground, no permits, no consultation. And Jake's accountant followed the money. $2.3 million stolen through fake fees, contracts to Vivian's family business, personal payoffs. Organized crime, clear as day. We brought in the big guns. Federal investigators, Cherokee Nation lawyers, the Army Corps, even a Pulitzer-winning journalist. Evidence stacked up, a whole web of HOA fraud spanning 3 counties, millions laundered through fake projects. Federal agents started sniffing around, and suddenly the whole house of cards began to fall. Vivian tried to flee the country, transferred cash to the Caymans, but got stopped at the airport, mugshot plastered everywhere. Flight risk, money laundering, tax evasion. She racked up enough charges to fill a phone book. The final showdown, emergency community meeting, federal agents everywhere, reporters circling like hawks. Colonel Patricia Hayes from the Army Corps took the mic. The Lakeshore Estates Marina has operated illegally for 23 years. Fines, criminal charges, tribal rights violations. Dr. Clearwater rolled out a 2,000-year-old Cherokee treaty map. Vivian tried to bluster, ranting about government conspiracies. I walked up, original 1923 deed in hand. Marcus Whitmore's own words. Lake subject to federal navigation servitude and tribal fishing rights. No commercial development without permits. The silence was deafening. Agent Williams cuffed Vivian then and there. 6 months later, just as colder than a Minnesota winter. Vivian Whitmore, 4 years in federal prison, $2.3 million restitution, McMansion foreclosed, husband divorced her before she even got to lockup. But the real victory? The community healed. New board, full transparency, a compensation fund for victims. Property values bounced back. The Cherokee Nation now runs a cultural preserve on the shoreline. Tom Brennan leads cleanup efforts. Water's cleaner than it's been in decades. The legal precedent we set, Rivers versus Lakeshore HOA, now helps homeowners nationwide fight back against corrupt boards. If your pond drains to a navigable creek, Uncle Sam outranks your HOA. The Cherokee victory strengthened tribal rights everywhere. We started a scholarship fund for Native students, sent 3 through law school so far. Veterans on the Water now runs PTSD therapy on my lake, 43 vets and counting. Sarah and I, we found something even better than justice. She moved in, and life tastes like fresh coffee and sunrise on the water. Maria Santos, our journalist, won a Pulitzer. Her book on HOA corruption's required reading for anyone who ever gets a threatening letter from a neighbor. But the best part is floating on my lake each morning, watching eagles hunt, hearing loons call. Water so clear you can see every pebble. Last week I got a call from Arizona, a homeowner fighting another overreaching HOA. I smiled, looking across my peaceful lake, and said, "Yeah, I've got a little experience with that." So if you've tangled with a neighborhood tyrant or seen corruption hiding behind manicured lawns, drop your story below. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, and justice is always sweeter when you're not fighting alone. And if this tale gave you hope, hit subscribe for more stories where the little guy wins and crooks get what's coming. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys really do get the lake.